The US-China trade war has entered a new and perilous phase, with tensions escalating to unprecedented levels. On April 10, 2025, China announced a sweeping 34% tariff on all goods imported from the United States. This move is seen as a direct response to the recent actions taken by the US government. This dramatic escalation follows the recent imposition of tariffs on Chinese goods by the US, which had already strained the economic relations between the two countries. The move has sent shockwaves through the global economy, raising fears of a full-blown trade war between the world's two largest economies. Investors are on edge, and markets around the world are reacting with volatility. The tariffs are the latest salvo in an ongoing battle over trade practices, intellectual property, and technological dominance. Both nations accuse each other of unfair practices and are unwilling to back down. The trade war, which began under the Trump administration, has been marked by periods of uneasy truce punctuated by escalations. Each side has taken turns imposing tariffs and other trade barriers, leading to a tit-for-tat cycle. The current situation represents a significant escalation, with both sides seemingly entrenched in their positions. Diplomatic efforts have so far failed to bring about a resolution, and the rhetoric from both capitals has grown increasingly hostile. The stakes are incredibly high. Businesses on both sides of the Pacific are feeling the pressure, and the uncertainty is causing many to rethink their strategies. A protracted trade war could have devastating consequences for both the US and Chinese economies. It could lead to job losses, higher prices for consumers, and a slowdown in economic growth. It could also disrupt global supply chains, increase prices for consumers, and undermine the rules-based trading system that has underpinned global prosperity for decades. The interconnected nature of today's economy means that the impact will be felt far beyond the borders of the two countries involved. The world is watching anxiously as the two superpowers lock horns in a high-stakes game of economic chicken. The outcome of this conflict will have profound implications for the global economy and the future of international relations. As the situation continues to unfold, the international community is left to ponder the long-term effects of this trade war. Will cooler heads prevail, or are we on the brink of a new era of economic conflict? Only time will tell. China's retaliatory tariffs target a wide range of American goods, carefully chosen for their economic and political significance. Among the hardest hit are agricultural products, particularly soybeans. Soybeans are a major U.S. export to China, and the tariffs threaten to devastate American farmers who rely heavily on this market. The automotive industry is another casualty of the escalating trade war. American car manufacturers, already facing challenges from the global chip shortage and supply chain disruptions, are now grappling with the added burden of these new tariffs. The tariffs make American cars more expensive in the Chinese market, potentially pricing them out of competition. The technology sector, a key area of contention in the US-China rivalry, is also feeling the heat. Tariffs on electronics, including semiconductors, smartphones, and computers, will likely disrupt supply chains and increase costs for both American companies and consumers. The targeted nature of these tariffs underscores the high stakes of this trade war. China is strategically aiming at sectors that are crucial to the American economy, seeking to inflict maximum economic pain and exert political pressure. The impact of the escalating trade war is being felt far beyond the borders of the US and China. Global markets have reacted with a mixture of fear and uncertainty, with stock markets around the world experiencing significant declines. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key indicator of American economic health, has plummeted over 1,000 points in recent days. The instability in the financial markets reflects growing concerns about the potential for a global recession. The trade war is disrupting global supply chains, increasing costs for businesses, and dampening consumer confidence. These factors are contributing to a slowdown in economic activity, raising fears of a broader economic downturn. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has warned that the escalating trade tensions pose a significant threat to global economic growth. The organization has urged both the US and China to resolve their differences through dialogue and cooperation, emphasizing the importance of a rules-based trading system for global prosperity. The world is holding its breath, watching anxiously as the trade war between the two economic giants threatens to derail the global economy. The stakes are incredibly high, and the outcome of this conflict will have far-reaching consequences for years to come. Section 4. The Biden administration's dilemma: diplomacy or retaliation. The Biden administration finds itself facing a difficult dilemma as the trade war with China escalates. The stakes are high, and the decisions made in the coming months could have long-lasting impacts on both nations and the global economy. On the one hand, there is pressure to respond forcefully to what is seen as Chinese aggression and unfair trade practices. Many argue that a strong stance is necessary to protect American jobs and industries from being undermined by China's economic policies. On the other hand, there is a recognition that further escalation could have severe consequences for the American economy and global stability. Economists warn that a prolonged trade war could lead to increased prices for consumers, disrupted supply chains, and a potential global recession. The administration is under intense scrutiny from both sides of the aisle, with lawmakers and interest groups weighing in on the best course of action. The political landscape is deeply divided, making it challenging to find a consensus. Some are calling for a more confrontational approach, advocating for increased tariffs and stricter enforcement of trade rules. They believe that only by standing firm can the U.S. force China to change its practices. Meanwhile, others urge restraint and a return to diplomacy. They argue that open dialogue and negotiation are the best ways to resolve differences and avoid a damaging trade war. The business community, caught in the crossfire, is urging the administration to find a swift resolution to the trade war. Business leaders highlight the damage it is inflicting on American companies and workers, with many industries facing uncertainty and financial strain. The impact on American companies and workers is significant, with some businesses forced to close and others struggling to stay afloat. The ripple effects are felt across the economy, from small businesses to large corporations. President Biden has signaled a willingness to engage in dialogue with China, emphasizing the importance of finding common ground. However, he has also stressed that the U.S. will not back down from defending its economic interests and ensuring fair trade practices. The administration is exploring a range of options, including targeted sanctions, to address specific issues without escalating the conflict further. These measures aim to hold China accountable while minimizing the broader economic impact. Targeted sanctions are one of the tools being considered, focusing on areas where China is perceived to be violating trade agreements or engaging in unfair practices. These sanctions would be designed to pressure China to change its behavior without causing widespread economic disruption. Increased investment in domestic manufacturing is another strategy, aimed at reducing reliance on Chinese imports and boosting the American economy. By strengthening domestic industries, the U.S. hopes to create jobs and enhance its economic resilience. Strengthening alliances with other countries is also a key component of the administration's strategy. By working with allies, the U.S. aims to build a united front to counter China's growing economic influence and promote fair trade practices globally. The path forward is fraught with challenges. Navigating the complexities of international trade and diplomacy requires careful consideration and strategic planning. Finding a balance between protecting American interests and preventing a catastrophic trade war will require careful diplomacy, strategic thinking, and a willingness to compromise. The decisions made now will shape the future of U.S.-China relations and the global economic landscape for years to come. As the Biden administration navigates this complex issue, the world watches closely, hoping for a resolution that promotes stability, fairness, and prosperity for all. Section 5. American manufacturers brace for impact supply chains and rising costs. American manufacturers are bracing for impact as the trade war with China intensifies. The escalating tariffs and trade barriers are creating a ripple effect across various industries, from automotive to electronics and even the food sector. Companies that once relied on a steady flow of affordable components and raw materials from China are now scrambling to find new suppliers. This sudden shift is not only disrupting production schedules but also leading to increased operational costs. The tariffs are disrupting established supply chains, forcing companies to find alternative sources for raw materials and components. This search for new suppliers is often fraught with challenges, as businesses must ensure that these new sources meet their quality standards and can deliver on time. Additionally, the logistics of setting up new supply chains can be complex and expensive, involving new contracts, shipping arrangements, and sometimes even changes in manufacturing processes. This process is proving to be costly and time-consuming, putting a strain on businesses already grappling with the lingering effects of the pandemic and global supply chain disruptions. The pandemic had already exposed vulnerabilities in the global supply chain, and the trade war is exacerbating these issues. Companies are finding it difficult to maintain their production levels, leading to delays and backlogs that affect their ability to meet customer demand. The tariffs are also contributing to rising production costs, as companies face higher prices for imported goods. These increased costs are not limited to raw materials but also include higher shipping and logistics expenses. As a result, businesses are forced to make tough decisions, such as whether to absorb these costs or pass them on to consumers. These increased costs are being passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for a wide range of products, from cars and electronics to clothing and food. This price hike is noticeable in everyday shopping, where consumers are finding that their money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. The impact is felt across all demographics, but it is particularly hard on low-income families who spend a larger portion of their income on essentials. This is further fueling inflation, which is already at a multi-decade high, squeezing household budgets and dampening consumer spending. The rising cost of living is forcing families to cut back on discretionary spending, which in turn affects businesses that rely on consumer purchases. The cycle of rising costs and reduced spending is creating a challenging economic environment. The trade war is creating a climate of uncertainty for American manufacturers, making it difficult to plan for the future. Long-term investments and strategic planning are being put on hold as companies navigate the immediate challenges. This uncertainty is not just about the tariffs themselves but also about potential retaliatory measures from other countries, which could further complicate the business landscape. Companies are delaying investments, scaling back expansion plans, and in some cases, laying off workers as they try to navigate the turbulent economic landscape. The impact on the workforce is significant, with many employees facing reduced hours or job losses. This not only affects the individuals and their families but also has a broader impact on the local economies where these businesses operate. The situation is particularly challenging for small and medium-sized businesses, which often lack the resources and flexibility of larger corporations to absorb the impact of tariffs and supply chain disruptions. These businesses are the backbone of the American economy, providing jobs and services in communities across the country. However, their limited financial reserves make it difficult for them to weather prolonged economic challenges. Many of these businesses are facing an existential threat, with the potential for widespread closures and job losses if the trade war continues to escalate. The loss of these businesses would not only be a blow to the economy, but also to the social fabric of the communities they serve. The stakes are high and the need for a resolution to the trade tensions is more urgent than ever.